zero, the concept of zero. I would say zero is an empty set in which abstraction is reflected. Any kind of abstraction. It's like a mirror. You can't really see a mirror. To the degree that a mirror is effective, it's invisible. You don't see the mirror. It's a blank spot that hosts or reflects an image, an abstract image actually, because the image in a mirror is the illusion. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. It doesn't really have those depths in it. So zero, comparing it to a mirror, I would say zero is where we look for abstraction. For example, you look at a clock. The numbers are within zero. We see the time, numerical time. We look to the clock and we see time, zeros in it. Or other forms of zero might be a page, a stage, anything like a stage. It's a spot, a place in which we see that, you know, what is being acted out is fiction. It's not real. It's symbolic action. So I call these zero space, basically, and it's where we suspend our perception of reality to see a meta-reality, an illusion that somehow gives us information, tells us the truth, an abstract, but it's abstract. Well, our eyes are actually good zeros too. You know, our vision's so good, we think that we're seeing reality out there, but actually it's just, you know, light coming into our head, you know, chemically modified into a reflection, an image, but it's an illusion. Vision is. It's also an illusion. Our eyes are actually zeros. Now, let me sort of derive the iconography of our basic symbols of, say, math, where we have a balance of 0 divided by 0, for example. Ratios come from the old scales, where we're balancing two things. These two objects can be reduced down to a number, and then a ratio, and then a fraction of each other. So I think that's a basic where our, you know, 1 divided by something else. But I'm calling the spaces, the tens in which the two objects sit, are kind of like zeros, basically, like that. It parallels what's going on with our vision. You know, the two eyes, you can see it in the word eye or oho, are divided by our line of division here, because we see everything twice, and we're balancing these two visions to come up with one vision, basically a single vision, to see one thing. Even though we're seeing two things all the time, we reduce it to one vision with a balance. That's a little bit like what a ratio is, a fraction is. Let me use this setup, this analogy of the eyes being 0, take it a little farther. If you've ever been in a fun house or walking down a hallway with a mirror on each side of it. But you see the numerous reflections cascading off into the distance. If you can't really see infinity when you're facing one mirror or the other because your head's in the way. Your head becomes the divider, the division between the two mirrors, basically. But you can imagine hypothetically that if you weren't there, that the mirrors reflect each other off into infinity. If the mirrors were perfectly opposite. 0 times 0, it's a reflection reflecting reflections. Reflections of reflections. This is a little bit like a good description of what happens when we're unconscious. At least hypothetically. When we're not there, when we're dreaming, when our line of division, when the eyes aren't facing outward anymore, they can face inwards and reflect one another. Basically, thought might be a little this way, where one side is observing the other side. We can see our own thought, basically. Well, when we're not there, when we're dreaming, it's a mirrors reflecting mirrors. And you get a certain type of infinity that's a dreamscape, unrestricted by reality, let's say. You know, our line of division is no longer in place. You know, that the eyes aren't facing outward, they're like this. Boom, 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 and the reflections go off into infinity. But then when we wake up, the eyes turn back out. We can't see it. Consciousness, when we resurrect, infinity is not something we can actually witness because our line of division gets in the way, basically. And then we're seeing one or the other vision. Not both at the same time, simultaneously. It's just a metaphor, but I would say think about dream world as being a little bit like 0 times 0 when they multiply one another off into infinity, the two visions, reflections of reflections. Now, 0 times 0, notice that it looks like infinity, basically. I think that's a good symbol because of that. It's two zeros reflecting each other ad infinitum. If you think of 0 as being invisible, as an absent, a blank spot, basically like two mirrors, two invisible spots that can reflecting each other. It's like this is an absence, 0 being a null set, an absence of absence. That's another way of saying multiplying. 0 times 0 is the absence of absence. And when that happens, you get infinity. They see off into infinity because it's a reflection off into infinity. But like in the funhouse mirror, we can't really witness it. That only occurs when we're not there, when there is no line of division. Basically, it only happens, only happens when we're unconscious. But absence of absence is infinity, or absence of absence is everything, is all, because absence of absence, there is no absence. Nothing is missing, basically. It conjures up numbers to infinity, reflections of reflections. So 0 times 0 is infinity there. But conversely, when the line of division reoccurs, then you have two different images separate from one another. And that's when we get back to a sort of balancing thing, like two hands are one thing, actually. Both hands we see as one thing, even though they're oppositely built, we see as one thing. So when that line of division is back, that's when we can be conscious, basically, and we're balancing the two different visions as one object, as one vision. There's a ratio, which is the basics for rational, I think. But now look at that line of division between us. Again, say the word I. You can see it's a depiction of a face. But take that line of division here. You can see, that reduces to one. When we're balancing these two sides, them being equal, it reduces to one. Basically 0. So 0 divided by 0 is basically 1, more or less, or a ratio that reduces to some proportion of 1. But that 1 is this line of division. It's also the first person I, because I are the number 1. I can be 1. Number 1 is 1. You can see that they reduce to the same thing. We are defined somewhat in that first person program as by that line of division. It's almost, if you're looking from the side, that line is actually a plane of division between the two eyes. And I analogize that to like a screen, say a movie screen, with an image projected onto it, that screen, and one eye's on this side and the other eye's on this side, and it's almost like they're trying to balance the two images. They're seeing one image from opposite sides, basically. It's but they're aware that they're seeing one image, but it's almost like if you've ever been behind a movie screen that's semi-transparent, you can see back there that all the subtitles are backwards when you're behind the screen, basically. But anything symmetrical like a face still looks the same. Sort of like when we look in a mirror, we don't even notice that our faces are reversed. This explains why symmetry stands out to us, because it looks the same to both eyes. So even though they're on the opposite sides of this hypothetical screen, plane of division, faces and things like that still look the same because they have bilateral symmetry. This also explains why words that have bilateral symmetry, mirrological English, for example, why words that reflect one another have also have a semantic reflection. We see them, a word that like, say, yaw and way meaning course, and yaw is off course, but they're perfectly opposite spelling. Why they would evolve to have related opposite meanings. Lots of words like this: route, tour, note, tone. I did a whole video on this, mirrological English. There's hundreds of words this way. These words stand out to us as having the physical symmetry between the two, and it makes sense that they would also evolve semantic symmetry together. And so this is mirrology, basically. Mirrological language is explained by our basic biological symmetry. But it's also just interesting to me that that explains our basic mathematical ratio symbol on both sides, and also the the infinity symbol, 0 times 0, basically comes from this. 0 times 0. It's just something basic to our biology, bilateral symmetry. Such that since we have two eyes, anything that can appear similar to both eyes stands out to us. Faces. Balance. That's why balance is so important to us. It's not just humans, it's almost all animals, vessels, boats, bridges, all have this symmetry to them. And it shows up in our language. Mirology, in mirology.